And maybe give a short introduction, because I'm very happy you were here, Alison. I know you're very busy as well, so it's great that you can share some of what you're doing in Scotland. We know each other for more than 10 years. I'm always happy to see you at SuDS and always really enjoying the research you do. And it's very important what you do at highways, but also Antal, who's here. You had great field trips.
We can't see you yet, Antal. Yeah.
Oh, but he's coming. And I think I just give you the floor. And I'm in the car. I will change, but Sydney and Charnay can take over as moderator if I'm not there. So thanks again. And the floor is yours.
Okay, I'm Alison Duffy. I'm a senior researcher. That's it. My life has been sustainable drainage, or nature-based solutions, as we like to call them now. And I've been doing this since I was 2000. I did my master's degree at this university, and one of the areas that was covered was sustainable drainage. And my ears pricked up when I heard sustainable drainage. And unbelievably, when I finished my master's degree, I got a job in basically looking into sustainable drainage, because they were very new still in the UK at that time. So the first job I had was monitoring all the SuDS at Decks, now the Dunfermline Eastern expansion, which is a serious showcase, big SuDS site in Scotland of Scottish people. I think one thing we're not very good at Scotland is blowing our own trumpet and saying the work that we've done. Like everybody, we have some rubbish SuDS and we have some very good SuDS. And I've managed to be involved in quite a few good SuDS, and I've managed to help drive some good SuDS being put in the ground as well. So for the first 8 years of my life, I monitored these SuDS at the Dunfermline Eastern expansion. So it was we looked at heavy metals going in and coming out, and these were mainly residential SuDS. So heavy metals, and we were looking at nutrients as well, and obviously oil. We worked with Edinburgh University, and one of the things we could see was the pollutant level was really quite low, and a lot of the SuDS that we had in the beginning were oversized. So they dealt with these pollutants no problem. And since then, I've moved on. And the other major one, 2008, I started for a highways maintenance company, annual basis. As I said earlier before we started recording, this is a planning consent, but the company is not very happy to share information at the moment. They will eventually, but at the moment they're not happy to share the information. But I will take you through some of the reports that I do later on. So what we're looking at here is the design of SuDS. The SuDS control the runoff to soak up all the pollutants from the highway for 18 watercourses across this highway of an area of 20 miles. And from every report I write, you can see that there are huge amounts of pollutants that are being held in the SuDS and are not entering the watercourse, whereas before, all these pollutants were entering the watercourse before. So we're clearly seeing how the SuDS work. They do what it says on the tin, basically. However, because I've been doing this for nearly 20 years, I do technical inspections as well. So we can see how these are deteriorating structurally, physically, how they are deteriorating. And I've been able to advise on remediation measures that they've had to put in place. But we've also been able to see, we've seen where you wouldn't expect there to be problems and why there are problems. And a lot of this is to do with issues at the construction stage. As we all know, the biggest problem with SuDS is they weren't constructed properly for various reasons. And one of the main ones is short-circuiting. You've got inlets that are too close to outlets. Another thing, side slopes that are too steep. Because this road passes through two cities and towns, but it goes through countryside as well. So you get ingress as well from fields and things like that. They're rubbish at cutting off field drains. So you always get ingress, which causes a problem for not just the treatment potential, but also volume as well. The things were not designed to have a permanent flow of polluted field runoff running into them as well. So this has been a good study. However, as I say, we're not really allowed to share the data. And then another one that I've done, which I could share the data, and if I'd had time, I could have looked that out because I'm sure I've got some presentations as well. So we'll schedule another one at another date, I think, where I'm more prepared for this. I have just come back from Ibiza as well, hence the nice tan that I have. But it was validating a SuDS tree pit. So this is for a company called Green Blue Urban, which Floris, you met. Did you meet them? You've met them a few times now, maybe?
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so they're seriously into sustainable drainage in constrained areas mainly. So they design a whole, it's quite elaborate, the underground system that they have. And it's kind of a level above what you would have under a porous pavement, really. But it's services trees, but mature trees. They're not into these little kind of dainty trees that only have a lifespan of about 5 years, mainly because they're not maintained properly, but also because the underground soil, the kind of environment underground, it's not really good for them. So I validated this SuDS tree pit for about 4 years in Dundee at a leisure centre. So it was quite a busy car park as well. So we had quite a few students work on that. So there's some good data from that. But again, the data is all there that these things work. They are absorbing pollutants, but it's really looking at the rate of pollutant uptake as well. And with this SuDS tree pit, we were allowed to see what the lag time was from the pollutants going into the system to when they came out of the system. Now, the system was huge. It was oversized, really, for the catchment, and it wasn't tanked. And what we mean by that was it wasn't a sealed system. So you had egress going out of the way as well. So it definitely worked, this one. But it's interesting to see the pollutants that come off the road that go into the system. And one of the main reasons that they wanted to do this study was, okay, we hear that the runoff from the car park is polluted. Is that going to affect the tree roots of our system? So that's what they were looking at here. They over-designed their system. So because we were able to do this study for 2, 3, maybe up to 4 years, they realised what they didn't need in the system, but it also gave them an idea of what the future maintenance burden, if you want to call it that, but what their future maintenance was going to be for the people who actually buy these things from them. And they're really quite successful now as well. So 2 things that I would like to discuss to see what you're doing in Holland is the DEX one. Now, the systems in Dunfermline went in 1996, so that's almost 30 years ago. The highway one that I look at, they're almost 20 years old. The tree pit, Green Blue Urban keeps saying they want to come back, and I've gone to start this so many times, but I just don't have time to continue it. I think it's important to revisit these and see that they're still working, at what level they're still working as well. However, trying to get somebody to pay for it is hard work. The government says, come to us with your research ideas, and every time, no matter what spin I put on it, they say that's not research. It's an operational issue. We want to fund research. So I need to think about how I can word any kind of research so that people accept that we're still making sure that these things, this is still research, this is ongoing research, because at some point, and we know that a lot of the SuDS are not maintained, and they're the most interesting ones. Rebecca Wade, my colleague, she started having students look at that, but I'm not sure how detailed she's looked into, what kind of pollutants she's looking at. It needs to, I think we need to be singing from the same song sheet. We need to be looking at the same kind of pollutants. So that's my first question. What are you managing to do in Dutchland, in Holland? And also, do we know if anybody else is doing it anywhere else in the world? And the second one is this data that I have for the highway. It is basically observational data. I monitor what goes in and what comes out. These are a lot of them are very long swales, some of them just turf, some of them nice linear wetlands. So how can I can tell the client whatever I want to tell them that we need to monitor for. And for a few years, I've been thinking, I need to take more advantage here because they don't know anything. It's not they don't know anything, they're not that ignorant, but there's been a big turnover of network managers that I deal with. So how can we get the most out of what I do here? Because we're at a stage, I think, where we can kind of publish this data. So
That's
they're
a
the
good
questions
point.
I would like to ask.
Yeah, and that's I think you have the right crowd
Good, good.
because the ClimateCafe is mostly, they're always. So Joe Bradley was here as well a couple of weeks ago, talking
Yeah.
about highway pollutions. Also some others. So we take trips to Riga, Latvia, or other countries where indeed, to answer your question, there are a lot of researchers doing this. Harold Sommer in Germany. So every country has their maybe champion of change, I would say. From the Netherlands, Sydney, from the municipality of Nijmegen, where Antal used to work. They do a lot of monitoring. And on a national side, in the Netherlands, we do monitoring, but having the same challenges as you. It's a lack of budget sometimes, or you need a project to basically publish it.
Could I just
Yeah.
say though, how long is the monitoring, and is it the same like me with this highway? It's almost 20 years now of
Yeah.
data. Is it no? Is
Yeah.
it
So
just ad hoc monitoring?
yeah, we do mostly focus on vintage SuDS. So that
Okay.
would be bioswales implemented 25 years ago. You might have visited that from the Skin project. We went to Enschede, or something you would pronounce it. Yeah, but anyway, some of the oldest swales are 25 years old. We did a round in the Netherlands to see, because Enschede is not the only one. I think most of them we visited was 15 to 20 years old. And we could see, of course, buildup of heavy metals, mostly because, budget, as you say, was a thing. We used the XRF scanner. So it's basically a lab
Oh
which
no,
you
this
bring
is
to the
it.
field.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
What
But
new
it's only
equipment
heavy
is out
metals.
there? Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a very cheap or insightful way to monitor. But you only get heavy metals. But of course, it might be that also polyhydromatic
What?
carbons
Sorry,
would be
Florence. What
involved.
did you use? What did you use to measure
The
the
XRF
heavy metal?
scanner. Yeah. So for
Infrared.
heavy metals, it's a scanner handheld. So also Sydney used it in Nijmegen. Maybe you can. I'm almost home, so I have to break off. Can you tell
Yeah, then
something
I'll
about
take
that, Sydney?
over.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. No, yeah, I hear talking about monitoring times in many years, like from the 20 years. Is that like when you start monitoring, really? Or is it the bioswale 20 years? Because we have shorter, we have all bioswales that we do monitor right now, but we didn't start at the moment
You
that
didn't
we
get them at the beginning. Yeah.
yeah. So we are however, and we did also measure some younger bioswales, and so you can do longer monitoring. But what I was quite interesting is the question you ask about and how your government reacts to um, uh, monitoring the the operationality of the bioswale versus research. Because here in the Netherlands, I actually try to turn it around in the sense that we have to do monitoring in order to know how our bioswales are functioning. So,
Okay.
for instance, our research project in the Nijmegen, our main goal was not research. Our main goal was what is the soil quality, and do we need to remediate the soil or anything? That do we have to take measure? That was one of the
Yeah.
main reasons that we get my municipality to go with this project, because research is not a direct goal per se for our municipality, but they say, well, if you are monitoring and you want to use that data for research, be my guest. So here actually I'm able to combine it, and we're starting some new projects also where, for instance, we are using bioswales for groundwater reserves for drinking water. And
Oh,
yeah, and they're actually, of course, the rules are more strict. So we say, well, then we have to monitor the functionality of our bioswales in more detail. We work with
so
like
this is for like rainwater reuse.
yes, it's basically for rainwater reuse. But then we get data from the water that's flowing in, the quality, the water that's right beneath the bioswale soil, and also in the groundwater. And that's the main reason is purely for monitoring if it's all functioning right. But if we are doing this for 5 to 10 years, that's of course very valuable data for
Yeah.
research. So we're actually trying to make use of the thing that I hear you have a problem with the government. Is that correct?
Yeah. So did you say it was bioswales that you're monitoring for water reuse?
In this case, it's bioswales, yes.
Hmm. And because you're worried about water scarcity, this is a
No,
concern, or
no, it's not it's the quality of the water. We're trying to refill the groundwater sources. Yes, that's one of the goals. But there's also another reason that we don't want to put all this rainwater on our normal sewage system, which has
oh
the
yeah, so to
yeah, we're trying to
disconnecting, yeah,
exactly disconnect
disconnecting.
it. So that this there's
Yeah.
all multiple reasons we're trying to apply it. But I actually see it as an extra opportunity to get data for research.
Yeah, definitely. So you would be looking at the level of heavy metals and the nutrients that are in there. If it's not road water, there's not going to be much oil.
No,
Um,
but we're monitoring it anyway because it's a groundwater source for drinking water. We have to measure a lot of things anyway. So we're like, well, fine, we can use that data. We're actually also trying to monitor on the new problematic substance like the PFAS, I think we don't do microplastics, but it was talked about.
I
But those are
know
all additional.
this is something I've tried to do for about since before the pandemic. Everything starts or begins at the pandemic, doesn't it? When microplastics started to become a big issue. So I've priced it every year and it's so prohibitive. I keep meaning to ask Joe Bradley who pays for her microplastics. And I've never really seen any data, either any raw data. Um,
We have another municipality in the Netherlands, Arnhem, that has some really good data on it, but they also say it's still really expensive to get. So I think because it's not on the list, that's
yeah,
on the
yeah,
list of rules. I think we didn't do it because it's that expensive. But PFAS, for instance, is good to measure, kind of. So we put that
yeah.
one in there. Yeah.
You can measure roughly with some really cost kind of methods of measuring
Mm.
microplastics, but not when you get down to the really small sizes.
Yeah, yeah,
But do you
yeah.
know why it's so expensive for us? Because no lab in the UK
Same,
analyzes it. Do you
same
know where
here.
it goes?
I
But
think
they say it goes to Holland. They
oh, to
send it.
Holland. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
They
think it's
send it to
yeah,
you.
I think I know the company that's doing it right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I know that. But we the another municipality they couldn't do it in the Netherlands also until a few years back, and they had to outsource it to Spain. So that was
All
also
right.
quite
Okay.
expensive.
Yeah.
But it's an upcoming business, so I think that's fine. I
I
also
know, but
see
you would think that a lab had in the UK would have invested in whatever equipment. It's not that specialized equipment. It's micro scanners of some kind. I can't remember what it is. But to be accredited, it's a lot of money to
yeah,
maintain this equipment and things like that as well. And you have to use an accredited lab, really, or we do anyway.
yeah.
Um, yeah.
I think Antal has a question. He's had his hand up for a while.
On you go, Antal.
Hello, Alison. Sydney already mowed the grass for me. I was proposing the litter and microplastics monitoring. But litter is well then the bigger particles, and I'm doing some research myself. It's around my backyard. There are many bioswales in Nijmegen, and sometimes I'm just observing and counting the number of litter, and usually it's
Okay.
around 20, 25 pieces, and sometimes it's a box of cigarettes, it's plastic, it's a cup of McDonald's, etc. Everything you see, and also the remains of cigarettes, and they are very bad for the water quality. So that's something low level. I'm trying to build up and to acquire some knowledge. But I was wondering I remember when I was with you in 2007, you said that the bioswales, you have loamy soil. So in Holland, we try to infiltrate, or sometimes we filter the water for first surface water, but mainly it's infiltration. And in your case, it's a green gutter, I would call it.
Yeah, okay,
So
yeah.
and
It's sealed. It's sealed basically. Yeah,
yes.
there's no.
So
Yeah,
and
for a
I
lot
can
of
assume
Scotland, not
this.
all.
And what we see in the Netherlands is usually at the distribution points where it's entering the bioswale. That's where the accumulation is. But because you are also in the undulating area, I can think that most of the pollution is also downstream, and it will accumulate on a different way. Because I'm not sure how have you viewed this before, and where you're measuring, because you were the case you're presenting was about the highway. I remember that also.
Yeah.
But the bicycle, I was wondering, can you share something about this?
For the swale, the swales that I'm working on with the highway are very close to the sea, and it's not loamy soil for a change. It is actually loamy soil. Is it loamy? What's a different soil? It's sandy soil. So you get a lot of infiltration, which is
Okay.
another reason why these swales work so well. When I show you the data, you'll see how well they perform. Apart from as the data gets on to 20 years, and when I will explain some of the issues we have, you can see why we are starting to get why they are not treating the pollutants so well. But yeah, these swales, at first I used to think, why is nothing coming out of these swales? But it was because you do get infiltration because they're so close to the coast, these ones. It's not like the Dunfermline ones where it's just clay and it's just a sealed unit. But I don't know if you've met Scott Arthur. Professor Scott Arthur he is now, would be Dr. Scott if you met him a few years ago. He did a study, and this is what when I started doing the monitoring for these highway swales, there was 1 year because I only do the monitoring once a year. Like I say, it's a 1 year observational study really to check that the swales actually do uptake pollutants and also technical inspections as well. There was 1 year that I could see. I do what's called the heavy metal build-up. So I see the heavy metals building up. I have the same transects each year where I take soil samples as well. I don't just do water samples, I do soil also. And one year there was nothing. All the pollutants that I'd seen building up had disappeared. And I'm thinking, how can that happen? Where has it gone? And Scott Arthur did a study. It was a European study where he saw that because of constant flushing, the pollutants get flushed down a system and they eventually get flushed out of a system, which begs the question is there any point in doing this then if they're not being kept in the soil? But for me, I was just so surprised to see that there was absolutely no heavy metals. All the heavy metals had gone. And what happens is, because in the winter, and the same with you, we must put salt on the road.
Ah.
So we had a very bad winter. It snowed past March. It started snowing the end of January, and everybody was like, "Yay, snow!" But by the time in March, we're going, "Oh, we're so fed up of the snow now." But we had so much snow, and the salt was on the road for almost 2 months, solid. And the salt actually changes the structure of the soil. And this is what was happening. The heavy metals were binding with the salt particles and merrily made their way out of the swale. So, okay, I mean, this was just, I've just kind of gleaned this information. I don't know for sure because I've not been able to do the pure research to prove that. It's a hypothesis, really. And now I can see the heavy metals building up again, but every now and then. And we have the usual suspects as well, really big build-ups of zinc and copper. You'll see with the data when I show you it. Interestingly, the work that I did for Green Blue Urban with the tree pit, I had one heavy metal, what one was it? Cadmium. I had cadmium that was always more cadmium came out of the system than was going into the system. Now you do get cadmium, it breaks down in cars, on the tyres and on the surface of the road as well. But not to it was almost double what was coming out of the system from what I was seeing going in. And all I did was Googled brownfield site cadmium, and it's historical. There used to be factories there, dye factories. They used to make cotton, and they dyed the cotton in these factories, and it's a hangover basically from the old industry. So because this wasn't a tanked system, it wasn't a sealed system, although we were getting pollutants that went out the way, we got cadmium coming in the way as well. But you need to have you need to know what you're looking for before you start doing the tests and things like that as well.
Yeah. And did you, maybe a question, because the metals can be mobilized by chloride or de-icing, basically. But did you see on the same locations still other contaminants there? Because this behavior is not for polyaromatic hydrocarbons, for example. So were they still build up, or did you just find no pollution at all?
I think the oil went as well. I think.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm just trying to think which one was the main one that I noticed it in.
Yeah. And if you repeating, if you want to share information you're not comfortable with, we stop the recording, right, Alison? If you want to share something, so then we wave goodbye, everyone online. Yeah.
Yeah. Alison, could it be something practical that some maintenance was carried out and the pollutants were removed?
But how could it remove what kind of maintenance would remove the heavy metals that were in the soil?
The soil, sometimes at the inflow. Sometimes you also mentioned to me at the highway, I remember, there were infiltration trenches filled up with lava. And if you remove the lava, then it's gone.
No, they don't. There's no infiltration trenches. This is straight from the road, piped into the swale. I'll try and find, I've got some schematics that shows this. No, there's no infiltration.
No.
There's no upstream suds. It's just straight in.
Okay. Because Yeah, this was the case at the older swales in the Netherlands, for example. We did a baseline study, which is quite unique, so to say. We really have to start at the basis, you know, to
Yes.
see build up, of course, and that information is mostly not available, as Sydney said as well. And then we also saw build up, and then suddenly it went down. And
Okay.
everybody said no, we didn't do maintenance. But then, you know, getting in more detail, we found out that there was scraping of the top layer of the
Yeah.
soil, and it was removed. If that happens, you conclude
Right.
that everything is gone. But
Yeah.
sometimes we don't know. There's not a very good diary about what is happening to bioswales. Sometimes maintenance happen by a different department, or you know. So
Yeah. No.
yeah, but it's not the case here.
No.
No.
No. It's the
Okay.
same company, and all they do is litter removal and mowing, and
Yeah.
that's basically it. They clean the gullies as well. The gullies, because there's gullies at the
Yeah.
road, and they clean those out, and that's it. But one of the things is that they've got ribbed pipes into these swales for some reason, which is not good because all the sediments collect into the ribs of the pipe because they're going horizontal as well. They're not even going the other way. But that they say the contractor would have just used, if nobody specified, they would have just used the cheapest pipe that was going, and that would be the pipe that they put in. But yeah, no, there's definitely no, because that's an expense. When they have to do work like that, they have to shut the road down, and it costs £1,000 a day to close a road to do work like that on these big, heavily used roads, sort of thing. No,
Yeah.
definitely
It's a
not
good
that.
indication that maintenance didn't happen. Yeah.
Because remember what
Yeah.
they do as well, when they clear the road when there's snow, the swales are these nice big ditches that they just shove all the snow into, that's
Yeah.
got all the salt on it as well.
Yeah.
So, and I wonder if the weight of snow, the soil becomes heavily compacted as well, which maybe do something to the soil also.
Yeah. Yeah, what I heard, because one of your questions was what kind of researchers are doing this research. Of course, if we go, Scotland has more snow than we. We don't use a lot of salt
Oh
compared to probably
okay.
Scotland.
Yeah.
If we go to countries that do, you know, Canada, Norway, Sweden, all have their researchers. Tone Mutana, I think you met her as well. She was in, I think, partly
Oh yeah.
affiliated with the Skin Project.
Years
Yeah,
ago.
she did a lot of as a professor from NTNU about de-icing, and also a lot of researchers found that heavy metals can be mobilized, but they never disappear. There's always a certain adsorption, of course, left in the soil. So that might be a difference here at this location. Yeah.
Well, I was also thinking it maybe depends on the heavy metal as well, because some
Yeah.
are more inert than others, sort of thing,
Yeah.
and they're not happy to go running off with a bit of salt, if you know what I mean. They want
Indeed.
to stay in the soil. So,
Yeah.
but also just thinking about it when I'm saying these swales are full of snow, all the snow gets compacted into the swales while it's snowing, and that winter. So when that melts, that's a serious amount of water that suddenly flushes through those swales. And it could even just be, that would be like a flash flood going through the actual soil, wouldn't it? When that
Yeah.
melts as well. So yeah,
Exactly.
it's something that but anyway, I'm about to try and start this research up again. I don't have time for the green blue urbans. They're not as important to me as this study.
Yeah.
I need to get back out there and have a look at what's happening because I've not been there for 3 years because of other
Yeah.
things that have been happening, and I'm keen to go and have a look. But I would love to do the Dunfermline East expansion. If somebody
Yeah.
would give us some money, so this is something I've discussed with you for about a decade, Floris,
Yeah.
is
Exactly. Yeah.
the kind of equipment, the monitoring
Yeah.
equipment is changing and borrowing what they do in other industries. You with your drones are not going to work, but there must be some way. So I'm keen to hear about how you did your heavy metals. That sound, if we could, I could probably convince the Bears, I'm not supposed to say that, that's the name of the company. I could probably convince them to use some of the budget to buy the equipment and do less sampling, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
One
Yeah.
year, just so I've got the equipment. So if I knew what the equipment was and how much it cost, that's what
Yeah.
I would say to them.
I think what we could do, because buying the equipment still XRF is considered to be cheap, but still it's a minimum of 50,000 euros. So the good ones
Yeah.
go up for 75,000 actually. But one point you raised as well, it's good to have a certified person.
Yeah.
So what I can find, we have to sort it out, of course, not in this discussion, but it will be great to have a ClimateCafe in Scotland. You have so much knowledge of, well, you put it on ClimateScan already, if you can see the research projects, and of course the vintage one, you know, where we already, you did already some monitoring, and we can repeat that to see if things changed. And it could be for the worse, but also, you know, pollutants disappearing is of course very good research to see if these SuDS are actually working. And a ClimateCafe, which we done in Malmo, for example, with Antal was there as well. We took XRF as one of the workshops. Also, the hydraulic conductivity is being measured by full-scale testing, or could be small infiltration ring testing. But a bit of a holistic view on, you know, where does the water go hydraulically, but also environmental study. I think we can. Yeah, we tried for decades, of course, to find funding. Indeed, there has to be some innovation, but maybe the innovation could not be on the technical part, because we have to say use the same methods like XRF to be able to compare it to the studies that Sydney is talking about, or we did in well, Latvia, Germany, and also in Sweden, for example. So I think it would be great to see if we can set that up. And most importantly, you're well connected to all the partners, Scottish Water or anything, and that counts. That's in-kind contribution.
We're knocking at an open door just now as well. If we can, they're probably about the only companies that have money that they would be able to invest, just because water is a big issue just now. Joe Bradley, just with what's happening in England, should be able to get funding for some serious stuff soon, because they're going to be handing out money soon to try and solve the problems they have in their rivers and watercourses sort of thing. Rivers and the sea as well. We have become the dirty man of Europe again. It's quite embarrassing. Well, the English have. Well, not the Scots, but the English.
Well, you have that activism, And before we go to Antal, because he raises his hand, but one thing which is really important is that with all the research we do, the results should be open source. So it should be publication should reveal what we find. I think we can find money, but that's a very important part. If that's not the case, that might be because you're reluctant to tell stuff because of agreements and everything. But when we start a ClimateCafe, it should all be open source.
The highway people are just risk averse. They're worried in case there's negative, because there is some negative stuff coming out now as well. But as I keep saying to them, it's not your problem. You're just the maintainer. You inherited the issues that you have with these. It was the designer and the owner. But anyway, Antal, before we forget.
It's also a question to Floris. Floris, I just shared in the chat the link to the regenwater database, the water, the monitoring. I think the last update was in 2020. And there's a lot about water quality. Maybe you can share something about that. I don't know if it could be helpful to Alison. And secondly, to Alison, have you considered the role of vegetation in the way it might absorb and process pollutants?
Yeah, like I say, we've got 3 types of swale. We've got very long ones that are just vegetated. They actually are the ones that perform the best. We also have and it's quite good it's worked out this way, and it's mainly because of the ingress we get from the field drains. We have some nice linear wetland swales because you've got permanent supply of water basically, but they're also dealing with runoff that comes off the field, so it's good to have those nodule eating kind of hydrocarbon and heavy metals as well. So it works well because they're in the kind of rural parts anyway. And then we have swales that are basically linear basins, but they are subject to a lot of runoff in one go. They're on the steeper sides and they fill up and drain down very quickly. So you can imagine the kind of vegetation. They're kind of vegetated, but it's not nice grass turf. It's weeds basically that survive in that kind of condition. So they're not the prettiest of swales. But because you do have vegetation, yeah, so I know about the uptake for all the three types of vegetation that we have. And I don't, that's not the reason for the heavy metals disappearing, I don't think.
But there's a side effect of vegetation.
Yeah,
It increases the hydraulic conductivity. And I found out in Holland there was a publication, Kenneth Rijsdijk, he's a assistant professor, and he published about a small book about hedges. And it's all about the
okay.
biodiversity. But there was also one part of it. He was measuring the hydraulic conductivity under the hedges in Limburg, in the south of the Netherlands, which is also loamy soil. And he
Okay.
said in those hilly areas, the hydraulic conductivity caused it was also erosion prevention measures, and it
Okay.
also that it was the hydraulic conductivity was quite high, but he was not able to share the data yet. But he shared with me an article I found at ResearchGate, and there's also a similar measure was done on the hedges in England, and then they found about 2 to 8 meters per day. I think it's the units. So that's quite high. And if that's the case, it also transports the water, including the pollutants, if they are dissolved into deeper.
Yeah. And I do conductivity actually. That's one of the tests that I do is for conductivity in the water. Obviously you can't do it in the soil. Well, if you do it in the soil, it's got to be in situ sort of thing. There's none you can, but we do have conductivity as well. And that's maybe something that I could get the students this year to look at to see if there's a correlation between conductivity and the pollutant content as well. Well, there should be. We always know that if there's heavy metals there, your conductivity should be high. If you've got a high sediment loading, conductivity should be high as well. So how we correlate that with maybe the leaching, we call it the leaching of pollutants from the inflow areas sort of thing. That's something that you would look at.
That might be nice with actually aquatic drones, because you have some big retention ponds. So there might be a higher conductivity near the outlets during rain or just after. You can make a 3D because conductivity is one of...
Yeah, they've all gone there and they're being held back, but they're sitting there. Yeah.
Yeah. So that could be a form of research as well. Sorry. Yeah.
An interesting thing, Sydney, for you, is the reason I was interested in your water reuse that you're doing is that we're just starting on a project for our government called water reuse. They are starting to worry about drought conditions in Scotland and trying to look at how we could reuse rainwater. So it's not for potable water, but you're not really for potable, although you're looking at groundwater recharge. So there is a level of treatment before it becomes drinking water, isn't there?
And yeah, exactly. And that's also the discussion I think almost the whole Netherlands is in right now. But for us, it's with the only one province. That, for instance, we are measuring on different substances because we have to protect the groundwater, while the drinking water companies are purifying the water themselves.
Yeah.
And actually, those parties are not matched enough yet, because we are trying our best to keep out all these pollutants, while some of the purification processes are actually really efficient at the drink water companies themselves in the area. So we are also in discussion like, okay, what substance do we measure? How do we monitor? But also, what are the actions that are taken? Is it really a big problem for the drinking water? Is it a problem for the environment, of course? And we have to put those, we have to take those apart, those problems, because our drinking water companies could say, well, we can get them out of the water. It's actually not really a big problem. Another discussion could be, well, they could get it out of the water with a lot of technical stuff that's really expensive. But we could say, well, that's maybe easier than trying to keep them out of the water. My preference is always to prevent everything at the source.
Yeah.
Because one of the main reasons, of course, that we try to get it out of the groundwater is just because it's not controllable anymore if it's in the groundwater. And that doesn't matter what substance it is. Yeah, of course, depends on the mobility and stuff. But that's one of the main issues we still have. But we're talking, well, actually, we're starting to talk with the drinking water companies like, okay, maybe we can come to an agreement that some substances are more taken care of at the treatment centers, and we have to worry less, not nothing.
Yeah,
We still
yeah,
have to
yeah,
protect the
okay.
groundwater, but we have to worry less about some of the substances getting into the groundwater.
And also, are you looking at if this project is for about 6 months, they just do these rapid turnaround projects, the Scottish Government for some reason. And I would signpost to your project if you have any data or outputs or something like that, and it's good for us and it's good for you because it will go in the proper government. It's to guide Scottish Water. They're the funders of this research, but it's through the Scottish Government. And they're looking for guidance on how to reuse water, basically.
Yeah, but we're not in. I think our projects are not viable for that, because we're not at the part of the process where it becomes reusable. But we have many drinking water companies in the Netherlands and universities, and also other high schools that are working on that part as well.
Okay.
So I think it should be, for instance, also Gijsberts, right? Bogert, I think
KWF.
KRW,
Yeah.
yeah, is
Sorry.
one of our drinking water
Yeah.
research water research centers in the Netherlands. They're doing a lot of research about it, and I think they have a lot of open data for that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
the process as well, what you're doing, that's what we're more interested in.
Yeah.
And reporting on that and then helping develop these guidelines for Scottish Water via the Scottish Government sort of thing.
Yeah. However, it's in the Netherlands, it's a bit of a problem that the rules are separating everything, because also in one of our projects, we're looking at extra purification steps, different biosoils, compositions. We're working with the university on a new filtering system, stuff like that. But it's all focused on preventing pollution getting into the ground, and that's separate from getting the pollution out of the water for drinking water. So that the last part I'm less focused on and I know less about. But there are many other people are working on that, yes.
And are you looking at all levels of pollutant loading sort of thing, from a busy road to a very small residential area?
Well, we have some rules in the Netherlands, luckily, that prevent us from infiltrating water on really busy roads for drinking water purposes. And that's a good thing, I think. So we're only looking at like the low level, not the lowest, but the lowest are like grasslands or forests, which basically have no human-induced pollutants. But the second category are like small roads, living areas. So we're only looking at that at the moment for this kind of topic. But in the Netherlands are a lot of bioswales next to busy roads, and we also do research on that. For instance, with the XRF scanner we did in Nijmegen, but also in other parts of the Netherlands with research from Flores and other municipalities. They took a lot of samples near the roads, and our Dutch Rijkswaterstaat, the National Road and Water Organization, they do a lot of research, really a lot of research at soil contamination next to the highways, the big highways.
Yeah. new research is planned as well, because I think that might be the level of Scottish Water as well, to maybe get our own the old gang together, Alison, with some of the researchers around, and it would be nice if just thinking about how to get new research and also funding. We should probably funding from the own country, but I'm sure Rijkswaterstaat will be interested if we have some vintage sites, and then compare it to Scottish situation in Norway, and that will be quite amazing result.
And
from
also
this.
Canada. Canada's a lot of work on SuDS as well in cold countries sort of thing.
Exactly.
Toronto and that. Yeah. Well, we're not so much of the leper anymore, us Brits, because I think they've agreed we agreed to pay into the money pot, and we're back into the. I don't know if it's still called. What's it called now? It's not Horizon 2020, is it? But we're apparently back in anyway, so we should be able to look at.
Mostly refer to Europe, but also Interreg, which we done with Skint. So you're back in the game, right?
So we're back in the game. I don't know about Interreg ones, because I just finished an Interreg one last year, and they said that's the last time that we can use you. I think Interreg is definitely.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's
because you were eligible for.
They got us in the back door.
Not every program, of course, but
we were the experts.
Well, we can check that.
They subcontracted us. So
exactly.
They said they didn't think they would get away with it for the next project. But anyway, we can find out about those things.
Exactly. Yeah.
So for the last 5 minutes, shall I show you this report and you can have a look at the data?
And then we stop recording, Alison, so you can speak freely, or
But so is there any more questions, really? I will come again. I would definitely.
Can I maybe just ask a quick question? You were mentioning rehabilitation measures. So what are some of the typical kind of measures that you would implement in your area in terms of rehabilitating SuDS?
Well, it's mainly, I'm more interested in the ones that are not usual, but you've got the usual kind of replacing pipes and things like that. And I get a bit nervous when some architects come up with these fancy kind of sandbag aprons and things like that are not going to last for more than 5 years before you've got to replace them. But this is what I'll show you. Check dams slump eventually, okay? And if and somebody who owns a long SuDS with 4 or 5 check dams don't realize this, that they slowly get washed away, a lot of these check dams. So this is one that we have a big problem with on this site that I'm going to show you the data for. And you'll see from the data how this thing isn't treating the SuDS anymore. The heavy metals, everything is just washing straight through because the check dam has slumped more than a foot. So and another one is when we've realised that we've got short circuiting. These things are in the ground on a big dual carriageway. You can't close the dual carriageway down. The surface water pipes were in place beforehand, so a lot of the runoff is going into a surface water pipe that's in situ already, and then it's going into the SuDS. However, it depends on the ground level it's at where the inlet is going to be. So this is why sometimes you get inlets that are close to outlets, because they just could not position it any further, or if they'd maybe designed the outlet differently. When I think about it now, if it wasn't a piped outlet, if they'd made it like a weir overflow, they would have got more retention in the system than what they were getting.
Yeah.
So we've come up with some weird and wonderful ideas to try and stop this short circuiting. Even CPIB got involved in it, and I thought their ideas were rubbish, and they were rubbish, but we tried them anyway. But things like that, I'm trying to think that one of them is one day when it starts raining heavily, I get up there. It's close enough to me that I can run up there and start sampling as soon as, so I can get the first flush basically. And I was looking at this, it was a long swale, and I'm thinking, you could see the river coming down the swale like you do, and then it was disappearing halfway down the swale, and I'm going, what's gone on there? So I'm running up to it, a massive hole had opened up in the swale, and the water was just pouring. So it wasn't even going the whole length of the swale before it hits the next of the system. So the next time it rained, we got some dye, and we put dye down it when it rained, and because there was a cliff face at the other side of the swale. So we thought, does it go, is there something, how is it making, where is it going basically? But there was a big cliff and a big water course underneath it. If I could show you it. So anyway, I almost gave up. It was 20 minutes later. This huge green, the dye was green, this huge green waterfall started halfway out of this cliff face. And this was it. So it was basically just short-circuiting because of the hole. And then we managed to get the old plans for this area, because it was a single carriageway that was made into dual carriageway, and it was an old cundy, as we call it, the old underground culverts that are made of stone. It's called the cundy, and the cundy, the top of the cundy had collapsed in, so it was going via what was the original course of the runoff from the road before being treated, before it was a swale. So that's where, and now the headache is, how do we, I said, look, as far as I'm concerned, just concrete that, but they won't concrete it because it's part of a swale. I said, but you need to seal it off basically, because the swale's not doing what it's supposed to be doing. So now they're trying to work out how to seal this swale up that's got a big hole in it. So it's basically short circuits as well. So that's just a few of the things that we've come across.
It's a nice story to share on ClimateScan, this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we also
Yeah.
like to share stuff that goes wrong. That's we
Yeah.
love it. I'm looking at the time, and I think some
Always.
people are maybe including me
Yeah.
going want to go home or to dinner or stuff. So I'm not sure if looking at the data is now viable, because I think we
That's
take
okay.
a bit more than a few minutes. Actually, we would love to do that another time, and maybe then you have some time
Yeah.
to prepare also.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll anonymize the data. That's what I was
Yeah,
hoping to do. But
Yeah.
I'm drowning in grading just now. I had to go on holiday. It was
yeah,
my daughter's hen party, but
Sure.
I
no
have
problem.
always
We're already
marking
really
to do
glad you were
also.
here. We
Yeah.
love discussion in our Climate Cafe, so that has worked out really well this time. So it's even better than just listening to somebody present. But we also like want to see that. But we'll do
So
that
that's
next
two
time.
things. I want to know more about your project, and hopefully I can highlight what you're doing in our report to the government.
Mm,
And also I want to know more about the kind of equipment that you're using that
yeah,
we don't use in the
yeah.
UK, that I can
Yeah, I
maybe,
think we can do that. So for the next time when we get you here, we can all prepare.
Yeah,
I can
exactly.
talk
Yeah.
a bit about our projects. Floris can probably also say the most about the XRF and the application, and then you can show us some of your data, and then we have another nice
Yeah.
climate cafe
and
online.
Yeah.
I
And
think we
I
should.
shared in the chat already the XRF or the equipment that we use. Well, we
Yeah,
can follow up
Okay,
on
right.
that, Alison. Yeah.
And I think we should
So
all get together and have an adventures with ClimateScan, because I was thinking about this. I've had so much fun all over the world documenting, and we've all probably got stories, and we should all have
yeah.
10-minute slot to say what our best ClimateScan adventures are.
Hmm.
Could be
Nice.
something in the future.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
go and eat your dinner. Go for tea. You've made me hungry now. Saying that.
And you're in a
Wow.
different time zone as well.
Yeah,
So
I've got
yeah.
another half an hour of grading to do before I stop for my tea. So
Yeah.
it was lovely seeing you all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great discussions, and we will plan something after the summer, because I think this is our last one. We wanted to
Okay.
go out with a big bang, and that's you, Alison.
And we've
So
done
thanks
it.
for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we
She
already
didn't even
planned
bring a presentation.
Didn't
next
matter.
time. It's
You
a
didn't
great
even need a
cliffhanger.
presentation.
Well, Richard
Exactly.
Ashley is really interested in doing one as well, and he'll be good.
Oh, he also good. Yeah. So that will be great. Yeah, and we're planning also after the summer already. Same link, same time, so that's everything fixed. We will start with some episodes on drought, which is really on the national program as well.
Okay.
So yeah, and
That
we
works for
will.
us.
Yeah, and I share that also. That will also be in English, because sometimes climate cafes are in Dutch, but this is with a lot of PhD students as well, international. So yeah, and some other topics as well. Should we share it already, Sydney, or is it a cliffhanger for after the summer?
Make it
Yeah.
a
No, we can
cliffhanger.
share.
That's-
I think it's nice to share, if, especially
Yeah.
when people are watching back. They can also
And
learn.
also Water Resilient Dundee, they're really
Yeah.
keen to do a
Nice.
presentation as well.
Let's plan that as well. And one topic or big project is Sparkles, right, Charnay? About floating solar. That's also being planned after the summer. So yeah, we can detail that. But indeed, now go for dinner and have a great cliffhanger. And I'm really keen to get the old the old group back again, Alison, and maybe set up a research where we all can contribute. So that will be that's a very nice outcome of this discussion as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Alison, I
So bye
shared
for now,
the
and I'll speak to you all soon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye bye.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.